Camp X, Chapter 10. Stay here. The man in charge stood up and left the room, closing the door behind him. We were alone. Jack, what did he mean? What's going to happen? I asked, my voice quavering. I thought I was going to start to cry again. I don't know, Jack answered anxiously. He can't keep us, can he? I don't know. But they're on our side. We're on their side. Aren't we? I cried. I don't know. Now stop crying and let me think. We gotta get out of here, Jack snapped. He jumped to his feet and raced over to the window, and I got up to join him. A thick white blind let in the light, but blocked the view. Jack pulled the blind away so we could both peer outside. There was a Jeep visible just in front of us. Behind that was a large building. It was long and flat and 1 story high. It not only looked newly built, but it seemed out of place on a farm. There were 4 other, much smaller buildings. They looked new as well. In the distance, 3 men exited one of the buildings and walked away, disappearing around the corner. Jack fumbled with the latch at the top of the window. It's jammed, he hissed. I can't get it open. Maybe we can smash it, I said. Too noisy. Somebody will hear. I'll just try harder and then... Are you boys plotting a daring escape? We both jumped into the air and spun around in shock. It was the man who had just interrogated us. He'd come back. We were looking, that's all, I said. I would think that you two have seen far too much already. Please take your seats again. Jack let go of the blind, and it fell back into place, blocking the outside world from view. Slowly, he started back to his seat. I followed, eyeing the door as I walked. Maybe I could make a dash for it and get away. Hurry up, gentlemen, he said as he again took up a perch on the edge of his desk. He had some papers in his hands, and as he studied them, we remained silent. Strangely, it reminded me of the time when I was called before the school principal for throwing snowballs, and I had to wait to hear what he was going to do to me. It seems silly now, thinking back, how scared I'd been. What was the worst thing the principal could have done? A shudder suddenly ran through my entire body as I tried to imagine the worst thing this man could do. I couldn't even let that enter my mind. Are you boys acutely aware, he said, this country is at war, and as a result, the government has many very special powers. Any citizen of this country can be asked at a moment's notice to do service for his or her country. Were you aware of that? I shook my head. And that service cannot be denied, regardless of circumstances. I am requesting that both you read this document, he said, handing a piece of paper to each of us. And upon reading, I will ask that you both affix your signature at the bottom. What is it? Jack asked. I am asking you to sign an oath under the Official Secret Act. I don't understand, I said. You are signing an oath stating that as agents of this government, you will not divulge anything to anybody about what you have learned. Agents of the government? What does that mean? It means that you are officially being enlisted into the service of your country. You mean like soldiers? Jack asked. Or like spies? I suggested. Spies? Why would you say that? He asked. I was just thinking, this isn't a regular army base, is it? This is some sort of special camp, right? He smiled. I'm afraid I can't answer that question. I still need you boys to sign the oath. We won't tell anybody, honestly, Jack said. I am insisting on your silence. Punishment for violating this oath is imprisonment, or, in extreme cases, execution. Execution? I gasped. Like killing somebody? A firing squad is customary in military matters. You must sign this oath being fully aware of the possible consequences of your actions. Do you understand and agree to these terms? You can count on us, I said. We won't tell anybody, Jack agreed, even if we're tortured by Nazi agents. Hopefully that will not present itself as a reality. And can we go home after we sign? I asked. We have to be there before. You don't have to worry about your mother calling at break, he said. But she calls every night, Jack tried to explain. Not tonight. All of the phones are going to be, shall we say, unavailable for use. How do you know that? That was one of the things I arranged when I was out of the room. The telephones at the DIL plant will be out of order throughout the last break this evening. You can do that? I asked. He smiled. We can do many things. But if we just signed the oaths, we could get home before she calls. There's still time. There is still much to be done prior to your leaving this evening, he said. You will be meeting with one of my men, who will be asking you much the same questions I have asked, but in more detail. And your answers will be carefully written down. But we told you the truth, honest, Jack told him. I believe you did, but there is much we need to learn from you two boys. Learn from us? He nodded his head. We need to know exactly what information you were able to gather, as well as the manner in which you were able to enter this area and leave again. I'm also interested in what Mr. Crumb discussed with you, what he is aware of. I would prefer that the editor of the local paper remain in the dark. I'm sure you understand. Now, before I go, do either of you have any questions? Yeah. Are you LC? I asked. LC? Now, how did you know my rank? Your rank? LC, Lieutenant Colonel. We heard a couple of the soldiers talking about having to meet you, Jack said. Being the commander, I'm given many nicknames by the men. LC is one of the more polite ones. Now, if you gentlemen will excuse me, your appearance has gotten in the way of my work, and I still have much to do before the end of this evening. The car slowed down and then came to a stop. Almost instantly, our escort, his name was Bill, opened the door and jumped out. There had been 3 men in the room during the questioning that the lieutenant colonel had prepared us for, but he had been the one doing most of the talking. Time to get out, boys, he said. Here? We were on a deserted stretch of the highway, a few blocks from our house. Why here? Jack asked as he climbed out, and I followed behind him. Orders. But I thought you were driving us home. This is as close as we go. We can't chance you being seen by your neighbors getting out of a car. It could lead to questions. You have to walk from here. Are you sure our mother isn't home yet? Jack asked. By a strange coincidence, her bus broke down on the trip back from the plant. It won't be, shall we say, fixed until the moment you enter your house. And remember that you cannot discuss what happened with anybody, including your mother. We know. Good. Good night. Yeah, good night, Jack said. And thanks for the ride, I added. Bill nodded. Thank you for the information. We'll be in touch, he said, and he jumped back into the car. The door slammed, and the car roared off, leaving us in a hail of dust and gravel. Did you hear what he said? I asked Jack. Sure. He said goodnight and thanked us, and said they'd be in touch. He was probably just saying that like people say take care or have a pleasant night. It doesn't mean anything. I'm not so sure. I am. What else could they ask us that they didn't already ask us tonight? Maybe you're right, I admitted. I'm always right, Jack declared. Sure you are. So I guess that makes them all German spies, right? Shut up and let's get walking. The highway was completely deserted, no cars in sight for a long stretch in either direction. We veered off and cut through an empty lot to come out on our street. Most of the houses were dark, but there were a few porch lights on. I wondered if people in those houses were waiting for somebody who was on the same bus that was carrying our mother. We came up to our house. Our porch light was on too, and for an instant I was afraid that Mom was home, until I remembered we'd switched it on before leaving that afternoon. We probably shouldn't have left the light on. It was wasting energy, and that could hurt the war effort. But we hadn't wanted to come home to a totally dark house. We circled around and went in through the side door. Jack threw on a light. Hello, he called out. Who are you calling? Just making sure Mom's not home yet, Jack answered. We'd better get into bed. It's incredibly late. I looked up at the clock above the piano. It was 3 minutes before 2. If I hadn't known where Mom was, I would have been worried to death. She was always home by 12:30, or 1:45 at the latest. Jack and I went to our bedroom and quickly changed into our pajamas. My brother threw his clothes onto the floor and kicked them around with his foot. We have to make it look lived in, he said. We'll just turn out the lights and... Supper! We didn't clean up after supper. The kitchen is still a mess. We have to clean it or Mom will kill us. We rushed to the kitchen. There were dishes everywhere. We'd figured we'd have plenty of time to clean up sometime between getting home and getting to bed. We hadn't figured on not getting home until 2 in the morning. Jack filled up the sink and rubbed the cloth against a small piece of dish soap. I frantically started scraping the plates off and tossing them into the water. I'll wash, you dry and put away things, Jack ordered. Wipe down the counter and the table. I grabbed a cloth from the sink and started to follow his directions, beginning with the table. I wiped part and then moved dishes to the sink returning to wipe down another section. Soon both the counter and table were clean, so I took a tea towel and started to dry part of the growing dish pile. We'd never cleaned up so fast. Jack was scrubbing out the casserole dish. Mom had made us casserole for supper, and all we'd had to do was heat it up. He then took a broom and began to sweep the floor. "We don't usually sweep," I said. He looked at me, then the broom, and shrugged. "You're right. I'll help you finish that up. And then we gotta be in bed before Mom comes through that door, or we're dead. She'll have old lady Henderson sitting on us starting tomorrow." Jack hadn't meant that as a threat, but it certainly made me move just a little bit faster. Jack had gotten another tea towel and pitched in. Within a minute, I was drying the last of the cutlery and dropping it into the drawer. "Great, now let's get upstairs and..." The door burst open. "Boys, I'm home," Mom called out. We were dead. Mom rushed over and, to my complete shock, threw one arm around me and the other around Jack, pulling us close to her. My eyes caught Jack's. He looked as surprised as me. "I'm so sorry, boys. It wasn't my fault I'm so late. You must be worried sick." "We knew there was trouble with the bus," I said. "You did? How did you know that?" Of course, there was no possible way I could have known." "We figured it must be trouble with the bus," Jack said, jumping in to rescue me. "You know how you're always saying how broken down it is?" "Yes, I guess I have mentioned that a couple of times." "So is that what happened?" Jack asked. "Yes, but..." I told George that was all that happened. He didn't believe me, but I told him not to worry, that you'd be home soon. "I thought you'd both be frantic," she said. "Come on, Mom. I'm 14 and in charge. There was nothing to worry about," Jack reassured her. I tried to send him to bed, but he was too worried. "So that's why we're still up. That's okay, isn't it?" "That's all right," Mom said. She gave me a little kiss on the cheek and then did the same to Jack. "I thought you'd be worried, especially after I wasn't able to call you on my break like I always do. We were so busy cleaning up the kitchen that we didn't even notice you didn't call until later," Jack said. "You know there's nothing to worry about as long as I'm in charge." "You really are the man of the house," she said, giving him another kiss. "Now, I think it's time that all of us got to bed." We said our goodnights and then headed for our bedroom. I snuggled down into the sheets while Jack turned off the lights. "That was a good one," Jack said sarcastically. "What?" "About the bus. We'd better hope there are no Nazi spies around here, or they won't need to torture you to get the truth." "It just sort of slipped out," I apologized. "Just 'cause you're my little brother doesn't mean you have to be my stupid little brother." I wanted to say something to Jack, but didn't know if I could. I swallowed hard. "Jack." "What?" "Thanks. Thanks for being there and everything." "Sure. Go to sleep. And try not to be so stupid in the future, okay?" "I'll try. Good night."